In the heart of Mexico City sits a house painted a striking, saturated cobalt blue. Frida Kahlo chose this exact shade for the exterior walls of her lifelong home, La Casa Azul, relying on a Mexican folk tradition that specific colors could ward off evil spirits. This 1930s portrait shows Frida Kahlo exactly as she wished to be seen, wearing the traditional jewelry and heavy shawls of the Tehuantepec region. She maintained this carefully constructed identity, even as her mobility was confined to the house behind these blue walls. To understand the person behind the self-portraits, we have to look past the public image and step inside the sanctuary where she was born, where she lived most of her life, and where she eventually died. The house was modified and expanded over decades to fit her specific needs, evolving from a modest family home into a series of interconnected spaces that allowed her to live and work. The most restricted of those spaces was her bedroom. After a bus accident shattered her spine and pelvis in 1925, this four-poster bed became the center of her physical world for months at a time. To help her pass the time, her mother installed a large mirror on the bed's canopy. While immobilized on her back, Kahlo studied her own reflection, eventually using a specialized easel to paint while lying entirely flat. The room still contains the heavy plaster corset she wore to support her spine, along with her prosthetic leg. She meticulously painted the rigid plaster with bright colors and political symbols. She spent years within these four walls, yet the bedroom never remained a static place of recovery. She used the space to turn medical equipment into a medium for her art, turning her physical limitations into a creative catalyst. As she regained some mobility, her world expanded into the studio she shared with her husband, the muralist Diego Rivera. This room provided the literal space for her to develop her craft alongside him. Together, they systematically stripped the home of its original European aesthetics. They replaced them with traditional pre-Hispanic artifacts, papier-mâché figures, and the Tehuana garments Frida adopted as her trademark dress. The kitchen reveals the scale of this transformation. Vibrant yellow shelves display traditional glass and ceramic handicrafts, while a cobalt blue tiled stove supports heavy handmade clay pots. Every room was curated to project a pride in indigenous culture. This aesthetic choice, known as Mexicanata, meant the house itself was an extension of the identity she expressed in her paintings. Moving outside the living quarters leads to the central courtyard. Kahlo and Rivera cultivated this garden as a dense oasis filled with native Mexican flora, fruit trees, and the monkeys and parrots she kept as pets. Rivera even added a red-stepped pyramid to the center of the garden to house their collection of ancient idols, permanently integrating Mexico's pre-Columbian past into their personal environment. The specific leaves, thorns, and animals she nurtured in this courtyard often appear in her self-portraits, directly linking her surroundings to her art. The garden acted as a living muse, offering a vibrant and uncontrollable natural contrast to the painful restrictions of her own body. The world of Casa Azul extends into the ancient, cobblestone streets of the surrounding Coyoacan neighborhood. Kahlo frequented the local markets, where vendors sold the traditional textiles and indigenous pottery that filled her shelves. She drew her aesthetic directly from the community surrounding her gates. Landmarks like the 16th-century San Juan Bautista Church remained centers for community worship and historical continuity throughout her life in the neighborhood. Coyoacan provided the aesthetics and history that anchored her spirit. When her mobility failed, the local markets and ancient streets sustained the identity she projected to the world. Looking back at Casa Azul, we see a life that moved from the isolation of a single bed out into the vibrant culture of Mexico City. Upon her death in 1954, Diego Rivera decreed that the house be preserved exactly as she left it. He ordered that her most intimate rooms remain locked and unopened for 50 years. In 2004, museum officials finally unsealed her wardrobe. Finding 300 garments, her painted corsets, and the makeup she wore in her final days provided a look into her daily habits that had been hidden for half a century. La Casa Azul survives not as a static memorial, but as the site where a woman systematically translated her physical pain into a lasting world of her own design.